300 years ago, humanity made a choice that confused the entire galaxy. They chose to say nothing. When the first alien ships appeared above Earth in the year 2547, the world held its breath. Giant vessels, each one the size of a small city, hung in the sky like metal clouds. They came from something called the Galactic Consortium, a collection of 12 powerful species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. The aliens sent messages of peace. They promised technology, medicine, and the secrets of traveling between stars. All humanity had to do was join them, become part of their great family among the stars. It seemed like a dream come true, but Admiral Tejo remembered what happened next. He was just a young officer back then, barely 25 years old. He remembered sitting in a dark room with other military leaders, watching secret recordings that their spies had gathered. The recordings showed the truth about the consortium. Every young species that joined them eventually lost everything. Their technology was taken and controlled. Their people became workers and soldiers for the older races. Their cultures were erased, their histories forgotten. The consortium did not want partners. They wanted servants. Earth's leaders made their decision in secret. They would not join. They would not trade. They would not even talk. They called it the Great Silence Protocol, and it became humanity's greatest secret. The consortium was confused at first. They sent more ships, more diplomats, more offers. When humanity said nothing, they became angry. They threatened to destroy Earth. Still, humanity said nothing. They tried bribes, offering planets and riches. Humanity remained silent. Finally, the consortium grew bored. They declared humanity to be primitives, too stupid to understand the gift they were being offered. They placed a quarantine zone around Earth's solar system and left. To them, humanity was nothing but a failed experiment. A species too foolish to accept their own good fortune. That was exactly what humanity wanted them to think. Now, 300 years later, Admiral Tejo stood on an observation deck hidden behind Jupiter. At 73 years old, his hair was white and his face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp. He watched as massive cargo ships docked at a station that officially did not exist. Each ship carried materials for the fleet that the galaxy did not know about. Dr. Hannah walked up beside him. She was 62, a scientist who had spent her entire life studying the aliens from afar. She knew more about the species of the consortium than anyone alive. The latest intelligence reports came in, she said quietly. The Korath are fighting with the Solari again. 3 border worlds have changed hands in the past month. ... Slowly. The Korath were the most powerful species in the consortium, cold reptilian creatures who believed they were born to rule. The Solari were one of the younger races, always pushing back against their masters. Let them fight, Tejo said. Every battle teaches us something new. For 3 centuries, humanity had done nothing but watch and learn. They studied every alien language until they could speak them perfectly. They analyzed every weapon until they understood exactly how to counter it. They mapped every political conflict, every weakness, every secret, and they built. The station behind Jupiter was just one of hundreds. Hidden throughout the solar system were shipyards, weapons factories, and training facilities. The Silent Fleet, they called it. 2,000 warships. Each one designed using everything humanity had learned about their enemies. Director Sung Woo arrived an hour later. Traveling from Earth on a ship that moved faster than anything the consortium had ever built, he was the head of the Global Defense Council, the man who controlled humanity's greatest secret. We have a problem, he said, his face grim. They gathered in a secure room deep inside the station. Sungwoo activated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Our agents have detected something moving through the outer rim, he said. A machine intelligence. It destroys everything in its path and uses the remains to build more of itself. The hollow swarm, Hannah said softly. I've heard rumors about it for years. Most people think it's just a legend. It's not a legend, Sunwoo replied. It's real, and it's heading toward consortium space. Our projections show it will arrive within 50 years. Tejo studied the map carefully. Has the consortium responded? They've dismissed it. They believe they can defeat anything. Sung-woo paused, his expression darkening. But that's not the worst part. We intercepted a secret transmission from the Korath High Command. They're trying to redirect the swarm. Redirect it where? Hannah asked. Sung-woo looked at them both. Toward Earth. The room fell silent. Taeho felt something cold settle in his chest. For 300 years, humanity had been patient. They had endured insults and threats. They had watched and waited while the consortium ignored them. But this was different. This was not an insult. This was an attack. They think we're primitives, Hannah said, her voice tight with anger. They think they can wipe us out without even getting their hands dirty. They're wrong, Taeho said quietly. He walked to the window and looked out at the massive shipyard. Dozens of warships hung in the void, each one a product of 3 centuries of preparation. Each one built for a war that humanity had always known would come. We've been silent for 300 years, he said. We've watched them fight their petty wars. We've studied their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. We know them better than they know themselves. He turned to face the others. The Korath think silence means fear. They think we've been hiding because we're weak. They have no idea what we've really been doing. Sung-woo nodded slowly. So what do we do? Taeho looked back at the ships. Somewhere out there, the hollow swarm was coming. And behind it, the Korath were smiling, thinking they had found an easy way to destroy humanity. We wait, Taeho said. We watch. And when the time is right, we show them what silence really means. Hannah moved to stand beside him. They've given us a reason now, she said. After all this time, they've finally given us a reason. A young officer approached nervously. Admiral, when will we speak? When will we finally show ourselves? Taeho smiled, but there was no warmth in it. When they're afraid, he said, when they're desperate, when they realize that everything they thought they knew was wrong, then we'll speak, and they will listen. The young officer swallowed hard and nodded. Outside, the ships continued their silent work. 2,000 vessels waiting in the darkness. An entire species was preparing for a war that was finally about to begin. Humanity had been patient for 300 years. Their patience was almost at an end. High Arbiter Vel sat on his throne and looked down at the species who had come to beg for his help. He was Korath, a reptilian creature with scales the color of dark metal and eyes that showed no emotion. His people had ruled the Galactic Consortium for 10,000 years, and he intended to rule it for 10,000 more. You say the rebellion is spreading? He asked, his voice cold and flat. The ambassador before him was a small creature covered in soft fur. His species, the Teth, had been part of the consortium for only a few centuries. They were still learning their place. Yes, High Arbiter, the ambassador said nervously. 3 more worlds have declared independence this month. They refuse to send workers. They refuse to pay tribute. Vel waved one clawed hand dismissively. Then burn their cities until they remember who they serve. The ambassador looked horrified, but he bowed and hurried away. Vel watched him go with contempt. Weak creatures, all of them. The younger species always forgot their place eventually. They always needed to be reminded. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Ren of the Solari sat in his private office and worried. Unlike the Korath, the Solari were warm-blooded creatures with soft golden skin and large, intelligent eyes. They were one of the older races, but they had never been comfortable with how the consortium treated younger species. Ren was reading a report that frightened him deeply. It contained data about something called the Hollow Swarm, a machine intelligence that was moving through the outer rim of the galaxy. Every world it touched was destroyed completely. The swarm consumed planets for raw materials and used those materials to build more of itself. He had presented this data to the High Council 3 times. 3 times they had ignored him. The consortium has defeated such threats before, High Arbiter Vel had said. We have nothing to fear from machines. But Ren was not so sure. The swarm was different. It learned. It adapted. Every battle made it stronger. And there was something else that bothered him. Something about the silent species near the edge of consortium space. The humans. 300 years ago, the consortium had offered humanity membership. The humans had refused to even respond. The council had declared them primitives and forgotten about them. But Ren had not forgotten. He had studied the humans from afar, and something about them made him uneasy. They were not primitive. Their technology had grown rapidly in the past 3 centuries, even in isolation. Their population had expanded to dozens of colonies throughout their solar system, and they were always watching, always listening. Ren had tried to warn the council about this too. They had laughed at him, far from both of these powerful beings. In a small trading station in neutral space, a woman named Kira sat in a dark corner and listened. She looked like any other traveler, wearing simple clothes and keeping to herself. But Kira was not a traveler. She was a human intelligence operative, one of hundreds scattered throughout the galaxy. For 20 years, she had lived among the aliens. Learning their secrets and sending reports back to Earth, she spoke 6 alien languages perfectly. She knew the political situation in the consortium better than most ambassadors. And today, she had heard something that made her blood run cold. She had intercepted a secret transmission from the Korath High Command. The message was encrypted, but humanity had broken Korath codes decades ago. What she read made her hand shake. The Korath knew about the Hollow Swarm. They had known about it for decades. And instead of preparing to fight it, they were trying to redirect it. They had sent ships to lure the swarm toward a specific target. Earth, the Korath, wanted the swarm to destroy humanity. They wanted to eliminate the silent species without getting their own hands dirty. Once the humans were gone, they would swoop in and claim Earth's resources for themselves. Kira sent her report immediately through channels that the consortium could not detect. Then she waited back on Earth. Director Sung-woo read Kira's report and felt his heart grow cold. He had always known the Korath were dangerous. He had always known they would eventually try to destroy humanity. But he had not expected this. He called an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. Admiral Taeho was there, along with Dr. Hannah and a dozen other leaders. They sat in a room deep underground, protected by walls that no alien weapon could penetrate. The Korath have made their move, Sung-woo said. They're trying to kill us all. For a long moment, no one spoke. 300 years of preparation, 300 years of patience, and it had come to this? How long do we have? Taeho asked. Our calculations show the swarm will reach consortium space in about 40 years, Sung-woo replied. It will reach Earth 10 years after that if the Korath succeed in redirecting it. 50 years, Hannah said softly. That's not much time. It's enough, Taeho said. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. We've been preparing for 3 centuries. We're ready, Sung-woo nodded slowly. The question is not whether we can fight. The question is when we reveal ourselves. The room fell into discussion. Some argued for immediate action. Others counseled continued patience, but everyone agreed on one thing. The time of silence was ending. Finally, Taeho stood up. The room fell quiet. We wait, he said. We continue to prepare. When the swarm arrives, when the consortium is desperate, and the Korath are begging for help, that is when we reveal ourselves. Not as primitives. Not as refugees. But as the force that saves them all. And then? Sung-woo asked. Taeho's eyes were hard. Then we show them what happens to those who try to destroy us. Across the galaxy, High Arbiter Vel sat on his throne and smiled. His plan was working perfectly. The swarm was moving toward Earth. In 50 years, the silent species would be nothing but dust, and no one would ever know the Korath were responsible. He was so certain of his victory that he never noticed the human spy ships watching from the shadows. He never imagined that humanity had already broken every code he used. He never dreamed that the primitives he despised were stronger than he could possibly imagine. Ambassador Ren, watching from his office, felt a strange sense of dread. Something was coming. Something was about to change. He did not know what it was, but he knew that the galaxy would never be the same in her trading station. Kira received a coded message from Earth. It contained only 2 words: "Well done." She smiled grimly and ordered another drink. The game was just beginning, and humanity was finally ready to play. The Hollow Swarm arrived 30 years earlier than anyone expected. When the first reports came in, the Consortium refused to believe them. 3 border worlds destroyed in a single week. Entire populations turned to dust. Cities consumed and rebuilt as factories for more swarm units. High Arbiter Vel watched the destruction from his throne room. For the first time in his long life, he felt something close to fear. This was not supposed to happen yet. The swarm was supposed to reach Earth first. It was supposed to destroy the humans before it ever touched Consortium space. But the swarm did not follow plans. The swarm only consumed. The Korath fleet moved to intercept. Vel had always believed his warships were the most powerful in the galaxy. He had spent centuries crushing rebellions and conquering worlds. He had never lost a battle. The Battle of Vel's Pride lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 2/3 of the Korath fleet was gone. The swarm had not just defeated them, it had studied them. It had learned from every tactic they used, and by the end of the battle, it was countering their moves before they even made them. High Arbiter Vel stood in his throne room and watched the reports come in. World after world falling, fleet after fleet destroyed. The Consortium was dying, and he had no idea how to stop it. For the first time in 10,000 years, Korath High Arbiter begged for help. The distress signal went out to every corner of the galaxy. All species were called to unite against the common threat. Ancient enemies were asked to put aside their differences. Every ship, every soldier, every resource was needed. The signal reached Earth. Director Sung Woo watched the message play in the underground command center. Around him, the leaders of humanity sat in silence. They had waited 300 years for this moment. "They're dying," Admiral Tejo said quietly. "The Korath are actually dying." "They wanted to kill us," someone muttered. "They tried to send the swarm to Earth." "They did," Sung Woo agreed. "And now they're begging us for help." Dr. Hannah leaned forward. "What do we do?" Sung Woo looked around the room. He saw anger in some faces, satisfaction in others. 3 centuries of insults and threats. 3 centuries of being called primitives. And now, the species that had tried to destroy them was asking for salvation. "We do what we always planned to do," Sung Woo said. "We save them. And we make sure they never forget who saved them." The announcement went out to every human colony at the same time. For the first time in 300 years, the Global Defense Council spoke openly to its people about the truth. Sung Woo appeared on every screen, in every home, on every station hidden throughout the solar system. For 3 centuries, "We have been silent," he said. "The galaxy thought we were primitives. They thought we were hiding in fear. They were wrong. We were watching. We were learning. We were building. And now the time has come to show them what humanity truly is." Across the solar system, hidden doors opened. Shipyards that officially did not exist came to life. 2,000 warships emerged from the shadows. Each one a masterpiece of engineering built from 300 years of stolen knowledge. The silent fleet was silent no more. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the Hwasong, the flagship of humanity's navy. She was 42 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen more combat simulations than anyone alive. But this would be her first real battle. "All ships report ready," her first officer announced. Yuna looked at the view screen. The stars stretched out before her, endless and cold. Somewhere out there, the swarm was consuming everything in its path. Somewhere out there, the Korath were dying. "Set course for Consortium space," she ordered. Maximum speed. The fleet moved as one, 2,000 ships jumping into faster-than-light travel together. It was the largest military operation in human history. The galaxy had no idea it was coming. When the human fleet appeared at the edge of Consortium space, the reaction was immediate. Korath patrol ships moved to intercept. Assuming the primitives were trying to flee the coming destruction, Yuna opened a channel that every ship in the sector could hear. "This is Captain Yuna of the Earth vessel Hwasong. We are not running. We are not hiding. We are coming to destroy the hollow swarm. Stay out of our way." The patrol ships hesitated. No one had ever spoken to the Korath like that before. No young species had ever dared. Then the patrol ships saw the fleet behind the Wasong. 2,000 warships, each one larger than anything the consortium had ever built. Each one bristling with weapons that sensors could not identify. The patrol ships moved aside, Ambassador. Ren was on a Solari station when the human fleet passed through. He rushed to an observation window and watched them go by, ship after massive ship. 300 years, he whispered. They've been building for 300 years. A Solari commander stood beside him, his face pale. Should we attack them? They're primitives. They are not primitives, Ren interrupted sharply. They never were. We just refuse to see it. The commander swallowed hard. What do we do? Ren watched the last human ship disappear into the distance. We pray they're on our side, on the Wasong. An artificial intelligence called the Watcher processed information from across the galaxy. It was humanity's secret weapon, a thinking machine designed specifically to fight the swarm, while other species relied on admirals and commanders. Humanity had built something that could think faster than any living being. "Captain," the Watcher's calm voice announced, "I have completed my analysis of the Hollow Swarm's tactics. I have identified 847 patterns in their behavior. I am developing countermeasures for each one." Una nodded. "How long until we reach the swarm?" 6 days at current speed.
6 days.
In 6 days, humanity would fight its first real battle. In 6 days, the galaxy would learn what the silent species had truly become. Una looked at her crew. They were young, most of them. They had trained their entire lives for this moment, but training was not the same as war. Some of them would die in the coming battle. She knew this, and so did they. 300 years ago, she said, the galaxy called us primitives. They ignored us. They dismissed us. They even tried to destroy us. But we did not fight back. We did not complain. We simply prepared. She stood up from her command chair. Now the galaxy is burning, and they have no one else to turn to. They will learn today that humanity does not forget. They will learn that humanity does not forgive. But more importantly, they will learn that humanity does not lose. The bridge crew straightened in their seats. Fear faded from their eyes, replaced by determination. "We are the children of a species that refuse to die," Una continued. "We are the descendants of people who watched the stars with envy and decided to take them for ourselves. Today, we show the galaxy what that really means." She sat back down and faced the view screen. The swarm has never been defeated. The consortium's greatest fleets have fallen before it, but the consortium never had us. And we have been waiting a very long time for this moment. The stars streaked past as the fleet raced toward battle. Behind them, the entire galaxy watched in shock and wonder. The silent species had finally spoken, and their first words were a declaration of war. The Battle of Keth Prime began on a Tuesday. Captain Una had chosen this world carefully. Keth Prime was a gas giant surrounded by dozens of moons, each one rich with metals and minerals. The swarm would not be able to resist such a target. It was the perfect place for an ambush. The human fleet spread out in formation. Hiding behind moons and in the shadow of the giant planet, they waited in complete silence, watching their sensors for any sign of the enemy. The swarm arrived at dawn. Even Una, who had studied recordings of the swarm for years, felt a chill run down her spine when she saw them in person. Millions of machines, each one different from the next. Some were small, barely larger than a human fighter. Others were massive, bigger than any ship humanity had ever built. They moved together like a swarm of insects, shifting and flowing in patterns that seemed almost alive. "Watcher," Una said quietly, "are you ready?" "I am processing swarm movement patterns now," the AI replied. "I have identified their command structure. I am tracking 2.3 million individual units. I am ready." Una took a deep breath. "All ships, this is Captain Una. The enemy is here. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity can do. Attack." 2,000 human warships emerged from hiding at the same moment. The swarm detected them immediately and began to turn, preparing to consume this new threat. Just as it had consumed everything else, the first human weapons fired. Consortium ships had always used energy weapons, beams of light that the swarm had learned to absorb and reflect. But humanity had spent 300 years studying that weakness. Their weapons were different. Missiles that changed course unpredictably. Projectiles that accelerated to impossible speeds. Electronic attacks that scrambled swarm communications. The swarm tried to adapt, but the Watcher was faster. Every time the machines changed their tactics, the AI predicted it and countered it. Every pattern the swarm used, the Watcher had already analyzed. Every move they made was anticipated. For the first time in its existence, the hollow swarm began to lose. The battle lasted 18 hours. By the end, the space around Keth Prime was filled with the shattered remains of swarm units. Millions of machines had been destroyed. The survivors were retreating, fleeing toward the galactic rim. Humanity had won. But Captain Yuna knew the war was not over. The swarm would rebuild. It would learn from this defeat. They needed to understand their enemy if they were going to destroy it completely. "We need to capture one of their command units," she said. "We need to know where they came from." Ground assault team was assembled. Sergeant Jin-Soo led them, a compact man with broad shoulders and calm eyes. He had spent his entire career training for moments like this. They found a swarm processing station on one of the moons. A massive factory that converted raw materials into new machines. Most of it had been destroyed in the battle. But the central core was still intact. Jin-Soo and his team cut their way inside. The interior was dark and cold, filled with twisted metal and the remains of half-built machines. They moved carefully, weapons ready, watching for any sign of movement. Over here, one of the soldiers called out, "I found something." It was a data core, a crystalline structure that pulsed with faint light. The swarm used these to store information, passing knowledge from generation to generation. Jin-Soo connected his equipment and began downloading everything he could find. Most of it was corrupted or encrypted, but some files came through clearly. What he found changed everything. The hollow swarm was not a natural phenomenon. It had not evolved in the depths of space. It had been created, built, designed as a weapon by a species that wanted to conquer the galaxy. That species was the Korath. Jin-Soo stared at the data in disbelief. 1,000,000 years ago, the ancestors of the Korath had built the swarm to destroy their enemies. But the machines had become too smart, too independent. They had turned on their creators and escaped into the galaxy. The Korath had spent 1,000,000 years hiding this secret, the very threat that was destroying the consortium had been created by the consortiums. Rulers Jin-Soo transmitted the data to Captain Yuna. She transmitted it to Admiral Taeho on Earth. And Admiral Taeho made a decision. He broadcast the truth to the entire galaxy. Every species, every world, every ship received the same message. The data was undeniable. The recordings were authentic. The Korath had created the hollow swarm. They had unleashed this monster on the universe, and they had tried to hide their guilt by redirecting it toward humanity. The reaction was immediate and violent. Species that had served the Korath for millennia rose up in rage. Fleets that had fought under the consortium's banner turned their weapons on their former masters. Worlds that had paid tribute for centuries declared independence. The Galactic Consortium dissolved in a matter of days. High Arbiter, Bell tried to flee. His personal ship was fast, designed for exactly this kind of emergency. He thought he could escape to the Outer Rim, find somewhere to hide until things calmed down. His own guard stopped him at the airlock. "You are under arrest," the guard commander said, "by order of the new Galactic Assembly. You will stand trial for crimes against all sentient life." Svel stared at the guard, a young Korath who had served him loyally for decades. "You would betray your own species?" "You betrayed the galaxy," the guard replied. "You created the swarm. You tried to destroy innocent worlds. You are no longer my High Arbiter." Vel was taken into custody. He would stand trial on a neutral world, judged by representatives of every species he had oppressed. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Much of that evidence came from humanity, Captain. Una stood on the bridge of the Wasong and watched the news reports. The Korath Empire was falling. The other species were uniting against them. The swarm was retreating to the Galactic Rim, wounded and weakened. A Solari officer approached her. Ambassador Wren had sent him as a liaison, a gesture of respect from one of the few species that had questioned humanity's dismissal. "Captain," the officer said nervously, "my government has asked me to inquire about humanity's intentions. What do you want in return for saving us?" Una turned to look at him. The Solari was young, barely more than a child by his species standards. He was clearly terrified. "We'll let you know when we're finished," she said. The officer swallowed hard. "Finished with what?" Una smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "The swarm is still out there, retreating but not destroyed. We're going to finish what we started, and after that..." Una looked back at the view screen. Somewhere out there, billions of machines were regrouping, preparing for another assault. They had been defeated once, but they would not be defeated easily again. After that, she said quietly, the galaxy is going to learn a new way of doing things. The consortium is dead. Whatever comes next will be built on different rules. Rules that do not involve treating younger species like slaves. The Solari officer nodded, hope flickering in his eyes. And the Korath. The Korath will face justice for what they did. Not just to us, but to everyone they ever hurt. Una's voice was cold. Humanity has a very long memory. We do not forget those who wrong us. And we do not forgive easily. The officer backed away, and Una returned her attention to the stars. The war was not over, but the hardest part was done. The galaxy knew the truth now. The Korath would face justice. And humanity had proven that 3 centuries of silence had not been weakness. It had been preparation. And now everyone knew exactly what humanity had been preparing for. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Keth Prime. The galaxy looked very different now. The Galactic Consortium was gone, replaced by something called the Galactic Assembly. Every species had an equal voice. Every world had a vote. On paper, it was the fairest government the galaxy had ever known. But everyone understood the truth. Nothing happened without Earth's approval. Chancellor Yunbai stood at the podium of the assembly hall, looking out at representatives from 100 different species. She was 54 years old, a diplomat who had spent her career preparing for this moment. Behind her hung the flag of Earth, blue and green and white, a symbol that had once meant nothing to the galaxy. Now, it meant everything. 5 years ago, she began, humanity revealed itself to the galaxy. We had been silent for 300 years. Many of you believed we were primitives, too foolish to accept your offers of friendship. Others thought we were cowards, hiding from the greater powers of the universe. You were all wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. We were watching. We were learning. And when the Hollow Swarm came, when your greatest fleets had failed, we were the ones who stopped it. Humanity saved the galaxy. We asked nothing in return except respect. The chamber was silent. Representatives who had once dismissed humanity as irrelevant now listened to every word with careful attention. The consortium is gone, Yunbai continued. Its leaders have been tried for their crimes. The species that suffered under its rule are now free. This is good. This is right. But let me be clear about something. Her voice hardened. Humanity offered silence, and you answered with contempt. We offered patience, and you answered with a weapon aimed at our home. We remember this. We will always remember this. We are not a species that forgets. She leaned forward. This assembly exists because we allow it to exist. Peace in this galaxy exists because we maintain it. The Hollow Swarm remains contained at the Galactic Rim because our fleets keep it there. Do not ever forget who protects you. Do not ever forget who saved you. And do not ever make the mistake of thinking our kindness is weakness. When she finished, the chamber erupted in applause. Some clapped out of genuine gratitude. Others clapped out of fear. It did not matter to Yunbai which was which. The message had been delivered. Later that evening, Ambassador Wren met with Dr. Hannah in a quiet garden outside the assembly hall. The two had become something like friends over the past 5 years, an unusual bond between species that had once been strangers. "Your chancellor gave a powerful speech," Wren said. "Some of my colleagues found it frightening." Hannah smiled slightly. "That was the point. May I ask you something?" "I've wondered about this for years, of course." Wren looked up at the stars. "When humanity revealed itself, you had 2,000 warships. You had technology we had never seen. You could have conquered the entire galaxy. The Korath were falling. The other species were in chaos. It would have been easy." "Yes," Hannah agreed. "It would have been, so why didn't you?" Hannah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful, because that's not who we are. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to build an empire. We just want to be left alone, to live our lives and explore the universe at our own pace. But we learned something 300 years ago when your consortium first arrived. What did you learn? That the galaxy doesn't leave people alone. The powerful always try to control the weak. The only way to be free is to be so strong that no one dares to threaten you." Hannah turned to face him. "We're not tyrants, Ambassador. We're just making sure no one ever has the chance to threaten us again." Wren nodded slowly. "And if someone does threaten you?" Hannah's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Then they will learn why the Korath are on trial and why the swarm is running." Far from the assembly, on a quiet street on Earth, Admiral Tejo sat in his garden and watched his granddaughter play with a dog. He was 78 now, retired from active duty, but still consulted by the government on matters of defense. His hair was completely white, and his hands shook slightly. But his mind was as sharp as ever. His daughter brought him tea and sat beside him. "The news says some minor species made threats against one of our colonies," she said. "Something about unfair trade agreements." Tejo sipped his tea calmly. "I heard. What do you think will happen?" The old admiral watched his granddaughter throw a ball for the dog. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. It was everything he had spent his life protecting. "Nothing will happen," he said. "They'll make noise for a few weeks, and then they'll remember who they're dealing with. They'll remember that we spent 300 years preparing for war. They'll remember that we destroyed the Korath Empire and pushed back the Hollow Swarm, and then they'll find something else to complain about." His daughter frowned. "And if they don't back down?" Tejo smiled faintly. It was the same smile he had worn 30 years ago. When the Korath had first tried to destroy humanity, cold, patient, dangerous. Then they'll learn the same lesson everyone else learned. Humanity is not a species you threaten. We don't bluster. We don't warn. We simply wait until the time is right, and then we act. And when we act, we do not stop until the threat is gone. His granddaughter ran up to him, laughing, and jumped into his lap. She was 7 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that could light up a room. She knew nothing of war, nothing of the galaxy's dangers, nothing of the centuries of silence that had kept her world safe. Tejo held her close and hoped she would never have to learn. On the news screen inside the house, a government spokesman was answering questions about the minor species threats. A journalist asked how Earth would respond. The spokesman paused for a moment. Then he smiled faintly. "We'll be silent," he said. "For now." The interview ended and the screen switched to other news. Trade agreements. Cultural exchanges. The slow process of building a new galactic civilization, but everyone watching understood the message. Humanity had been silent before. That silence had lasted 300 years. And when it had ended, the entire galaxy had changed. If humanity chose to be silent again, it was not because they had nothing to say. It was because they were waiting, watching, preparing. And this time, Galaxy knew better than to ignore them. In the garden, Admiral Tejo held his granddaughter and listened to her laughter. Above them, the first stars were appearing in the evening sky. Somewhere out there, human fleets patrolled the borders of known space. Somewhere out there, the remains of the swarm waited for their chance to return. But for now, there was peace. For now, there was silence, and everyone in the galaxy knew exactly what that silence meant.